Let food be thy medicine, Hippocrates once said. But what if the very food we consider a superfood, a vibrant handful of blueberries, could lose its protective power, or worse, turn harmful when combined with certain other foods? Today I want to speak directly to those of you over 60 because this is the age when small decisions have the most profound biological consequences. Your mitochondria are more sensitive, inflammatory markers rise, and your cells no longer repair damage with the same speed as in your youth. The margin for error narrows, and that's exactly why we must get this right. Blueberries, rich in anthocyanins, flavonoids, and resveratrol-like compounds, are celebrated for their anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. They're among nature's most potent defense systems against cognitive decline, oxidative stress, and even DNA damage. But here's the twist most people don't know. What you combine blueberries with can radically change their biological impact. In fact, there are 3 common foods consumed innocently, often at breakfast or as part of a healthy diet, that can sabotage the benefits of blueberries and turn them into metabolic wrecking balls, especially in aging bodies. Let's explore what happens and, more importantly, why. Blueberries are often praised for their exceptional antioxidant capacity, largely because they're rich in polyphenols, particularly anthocyanins, the pigments responsible for their vibrant blue-purple color. These compounds aren't just cosmetic, they're bioactive. They activate longevity pathways in the body, such as the SIRT1 gene family, enhance mitochondrial function, and reduce oxidative stress, one of the central drivers of aging. But what most people don't realize is that the power of blueberries is not just about what's in them, it's also about what we eat them with. This is a recurring theme in longevity science. Context is king. A compound that is health-promoting in one environment may become ineffective or even counterproductive in another. This brings us to a surprising and critical finding. When blueberries are consumed with dairy, especially milk or yogurt, their health benefits can be significantly compromised. In fact, some of their most beneficial compounds are rendered biologically inert. This is not theoretical, it's well documented in nutritional biochemistry. Here's why. Milk contains proteins, most notably casein, which have a strong affinity for polyphenols. When these proteins come into contact with the anthocyanins and flavonoids in blueberries, they bind together. This binding forms protein polyphenol complexes that are too large or insoluble to be efficiently absorbed through the intestinal lining. In other words, your body can't utilize the polyphenols in the same way when they're tied up with milk protein. They pass through your system with little biological impact. This means the antioxidant potential of blueberries, normally so potent, is severely diminished. One study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry showed that antioxidant activity was reduced by more than 70% when blueberries were consumed with milk versus water. That's a staggering reduction. It transforms blueberries from a food that combats inflammation and oxidative stress to one that may provide little more than flavor and fiber. It's important to consider this through the lens of aging biology. As we age, our bodies naturally accumulate oxidative damage to proteins, lipids, and DNA. This process fuels the hallmarks of aging, from mitochondrial dysfunction and cellular senescence to epigenetic alterations and stem cell exhaustion. Antioxidants, particularly those that upregulate endogenous defense systems like NRF2 and sirtuins, are crucial in slowing this accumulation of damage. Blueberry polyphenols do exactly this when unimpeded. In individuals over 60, the stakes are even higher. Aging leads to reduced gut permeability, impaired nutrient absorption, and slower activation of intercellular repair pathways. The older we get, the less margin for nutritional inefficiency we have. Every opportunity to activate those protective systems becomes more valuable. So when we neutralize the impact of a high-quality food like blueberries by combining them with casein-rich dairy, we're not just missing a health opportunity, we may be actively undermining our anti-aging strategy. Let's look at this from the systems biology perspective. The polyphenols in blueberries don't work like simple antioxidants that mop up free radicals. That's an outdated model. They act more like hormetic agents, mild stressors that stimulate the body's own repair mechanisms. This hormetic effect is central to activating longevity genes and enhancing autophagy. the cellular housekeeping system that breaks down damaged proteins and organelles. However, when dairy proteins block polyphenol absorption, this mild beneficial stress never reaches the system. The molecular signal that would have triggered cellular defense is muffled, if not silenced altogether. Even more concerning is that many well-meaning older adults, aiming to eat healthy, often consume blueberries in ways that seem wholesome but are molecularly counterproductive. Think of blueberry yogurt parfaits, blueberry smoothies made with milk, or breakfast cereals with both milk and blueberries. The intention is good, but the biochemistry doesn't lie. These combinations inhibit the very defense systems we aim to support in the aging body. Some may argue that yogurt, especially probiotic-rich varieties, has health benefits of its own. That's true in some contexts. But when the goal is maximizing polyphenol absorption from blueberries, dairy simply isn't the right partner. If you're looking for alternatives, consider pairing blueberries with plant-based milks, like almond, coconut, or oat milk. These lack casein and do not appear to bind polyphenols in the same antagonistic way. Better yet, eat blueberries alone or with a high-fiber base like chia pudding or steel-cut oats, combinations that not only preserve their benefits, but may even enhance polyphenol bioavailability through gut fermentation and microbiome synergy. Another often overlooked factor is timing. Studies suggest that the window of nutrient interaction matters. If blueberries and dairy are consumed together or even within a short metabolic window, the binding effect can occur. So simply eating blueberries an hour after a bowl of Greek yogurt may still blunt their effect. The body doesn't forget quickly. That's why we must think not just about what we eat, but when and with what else. All of this underscores a broader truth in longevity research. Food is information. Every bite you eat sends a signal, turning genes on or off, influencing inflammation, mitochondrial health, insulin sensitivity, and more. And just like any information system, signal clarity is essential. When we obscure a powerful molecular message like the one blueberries deliver, with disruptive noise from casein proteins, we lose the clarity, we lose the signal, we lose the benefit. As we continue to decode the aging process, one thing becomes increasingly clear. We must become more intentional about how we eat, not just what we eat. Especially for those of us over 60, where every nutritional choice can mean the difference between cellular decline and cellular resilience. Blueberries have the potential to be a powerful tool in our anti-aging arsenal, but only when we let them work unhindered. So if you're serious about extending your health span, about preserving brain function, maintaining cardiovascular health, and protecting your DNA, do this one simple thing. Don't drown your blueberries in milk. Give them the biochemical space to do what nature designed them to do. Activate longevity, one molecule at a time. At first glance, the combination of blueberries with foods like pancakes, muffins, or toast might seem harmless, maybe even healthy. After all, you're adding a known superfood to your breakfast, but beneath this seeming innocent pairing lies a molecular disaster, especially for people over 60 whose metabolic systems have become more fragile, less flexible, and more vulnerable to glycemic stress. When blueberries are combined with refined carbohydrates, their anti-aging power doesn't just get neutralized, it can actually contribute to accelerated aging through a mechanism we understand deeply in modern longevity science: glycemic load and postprandial inflammation. To understand why this happens, let's zoom in on what refined carbohydrates do to your body. When you consume white bread, pancakes, sugary cereal, or muffins made from white flour, you flood your bloodstream with glucose almost immediately. These ultra-processed starches break down quickly, offering little to no fiber to slow absorption. As a result, your blood sugar spikes, triggering a cascade of metabolic responses. Insulin is secreted in high amounts to bring glucose levels down, fat storage increases, and oxidative stress is triggered in your mitochondria, the energy-producing organelles in your cells. Now let's add blueberries to this mix. These berries are packed with polyphenols, particularly anthocyanins, which activate antioxidant defense systems, protect mitochondrial DNA, and stimulate the SIRT1 and AMPK pathways. These are the exact pathways that promote energy efficiency, DNA repair, and cellular rejuvenation. However, when blueberries are consumed alongside a meal that creates a hyperglycemic state, the environment inside the body becomes pro-inflammatory. Think of it like this: the refined carbs create a wildfire of oxidative damage and the blueberries bring a small water bucket to fight it. They get overwhelmed. The polyphenols that would normally be free to activate longevity pathways are instead repurposed to put out immediate oxidative fires. Their molecular signaling potential is hijacked by emergency cleanup duty. This is a classic example of nutritional interference. The refined carbs don't just make the meal less healthy, they directly undermine the beneficial effects of the blueberries. The glucose spike triggers a surge in reactive oxygen species, RAS, within cells. These RAS aren't always bad. In fact, small amounts trigger hormetic responses, but in large sustained doses, they damage mitochondrial membranes, shorten telomeres, and accelerate epigenetic drift. This is particularly dangerous for older adults, whose antioxidant defenses have already declined with age. Let's talk about AGEs, advanced glycation, end products. These are the harmful compounds formed when excess sugars bind to proteins and fats in the body, rendering them stiff and dysfunctional. Glycation stiffens arteries, clouds the lenses of the eyes, leading to cataracts, and contributes to neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's disease. AGEs also increase chronic inflammation and cellular senescence, two major pillars of aging. Eating a blueberry muffin, for example, is a double-edged sword. The sugar and refined flour load the body with glucose, creating a breeding ground for glycation. Meanwhile, the blueberries, which should be protecting against such damage, are rendered nearly ineffective. This biochemical paradox is what makes this food pairing so dangerous for older adults. The older you get, the less insulin sensitive your cells become. Muscle mass declines, and the pancreas struggles to produce insulin as efficiently. In the presence of refined carbs, the body's ability to handle a glucose load becomes impaired. Even moderate blood sugar spikes take longer to resolve, leading to prolonged oxidative stress. When this becomes a daily occurrence, blueberries on waffles, blueberry jam on toast, blueberry muffins with coffee, it accelerates the very processes you're trying to slow down. From a systems biology perspective, we know that chronic blood sugar variability is a better predictor of disease than even fasting glucose. The spikes and crashes cause cumulative wear and tear on the endothelium, the lining of your blood vessels. They impair cognitive clarity by increasing neuroinflammation. They shrink brain volume over time and impair neurogenesis, the creation of new brain cells. And for someone over 60, every % of lost brain volume counts. But there's more. Refined carbohydrates also change the gut microbiome rapidly and negatively. They feed pathogenic bacteria and starve the beneficial strains that thrive on fiber and polyphenols. The beneficial gut microbes responsible for metabolizing blueberry compounds like anthocyanins and transforming them into bioactive metabolites become outnumbered. This further blunts the benefits of blueberries. Without the right microbial processing, many of the compounds in blueberries are simply excreted rather than absorbed and used. Now, imagine a better scenario. Instead of a blueberry muffin made with white flour and sugar, imagine a small bowl of wild blueberries paired with steel-cut oats, chia seeds, and a drizzle of olive oil. Suddenly, the glucose release is slower, buffered by fiber and healthy fats. The body is calm. There's no metabolic spike, no oxidative storm. The polyphenols in the blueberries are free to activate SIRT1, to upregulate antioxidant defenses, and to protect neurons from microvascular injury. Instead of aging acceleration, you get age resistance. This isn't just theory. Clinical studies have shown that low glycemic diets, when paired with polyphenol-rich foods, significantly reduce biomarkers of inflammation like CRP, IL-6, and TNF-alpha. These are the silent saboteurs of health in aging adults. And by keeping glucose in check, you also preserve muscle protein synthesis, maintain insulin sensitivity, and slow sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass. So the next time you reach for blueberries, remember, they're not a magic bullet on their own. They're molecularly intelligent agents, but they work best in the right environment. If you throw them into a metabolic chaos of refined sugars and starches, they'll drown. But if you give them space, if you eat them alone, or paired with low glycemic high fiber foods, they'll activate your body's ancient cellular repair system. For those of us serious about extending our health span, not just living longer but living better, this kind of dietary precision matters. We're not just feeding ourselves, we're programming our biology. Every meal is a message to your genes. Let blueberries speak clearly, but don't let pancakes, muffins, or refined bread drown them out. It's a combination that, on the surface, seems balanced, a high-protein breakfast with some healthy fruit on the side. Think eggs, sausage, or bacon, and a few blueberries on the plate. Maybe as garnish, maybe for a hint of sweetness. It might even be called low-carb or keto-friendly, appealing to many older adults trying to regulate blood sugar or lose weight. But when we dive deeper, when we examine this pairing through the lens of cellular biology and the aging process, it becomes clear that this combination is more than just unhelpful. It's antagonistic because when blueberries meet processed meats, their protective power is not only diminished, it's diverted, hijacked, and in some cases made irrelevant. To understand why, let's start with what processed meats really are. Foods like bacon, sausage, salami, ham, and deli meats are not just high in saturated fats and salt. They're chemically altered with preservatives, most notably nitrates and nitrites. These compounds are used to improve flavor, texture, and shelf life, but they come with a hidden cost. Inside the human body, particularly in the acidic environment of the stomach, nitrates and nitrites can be converted into nitrosamines, a class of highly reactive carcinogenic compounds that damage DNA, promote inflammation, and are strongly associated with increased risk of colorectal, gastric, and pancreatic cancers. Now add blueberries to the mix. This fruit is celebrated for its polyphenols, especially anthocyanins, that scavenge free radicals, reduce DNA damage, and upregulate genes associated with cellular repair and stress resilience. In short, blueberries are mitochondrial medicine. They protect our brains, our blood vessels, and our cellular machinery from the daily wear and tear of oxidative stress. But here's the problem. When consumed alongside processed meats, those polyphenols are forced into damage control mode rather than initiating beneficial signaling cascades in the body, such as activating the sirtuins, increasing AMPK activity, or boosting endogenous antioxidant enzymes like superoxide dismutase. The blueberry compounds are repurposed. They have to combat the onslaught of inflammation, lipid peroxidation, and toxic byproducts released by the processed meat. It's like hiring an elite team of architects to build a beautiful house, and instead sending them to put out fires every day. Nothing gets built. No progress is made, only damage control. In practical terms, this means the polyphenols in blueberries are neutralized. Their antioxidant capacity is spent on countering the oxidative stress from processed meats instead of activating the body's internal longevity systems. That's not a net win, it's a nutritional waste. But the story goes even deeper. Processed meats also introduce compounds called ALEs, advanced lipoxidation end products. These are similar to AGs, advanced glycation end products, but are formed when fats, especially oxidized or polyunsaturated fats, interact with proteins and sugars during high-heat cooking and processing. ALEs trigger chronic inflammation, damage mitochondria, and accelerate the aging of vascular and neural tissue. In older adults, where vascular integrity and neuroprotection are already compromised, this is particularly dangerous. This means that while blueberries should be reinforcing the blood-brain barrier and supporting cognitive longevity, their efforts are instead spent trying to neutralize AAA-induced damage. Again, molecular triage replaces molecular enhancement. There's another layer here, one involving the gut microbiome. Processed meats disrupt the composition of the gut flora, favoring the growth of pro-inflammatory bacterial strains and reducing diversity. A healthy microbiome is essential for metabolizing and activating the beneficial compounds in blueberries. Certain gut bacteria actually convert blueberry polyphenols into urolithins, compounds that help rejuvenate mitochondria, enhance autophagy, and reduce inflammation. But when processed meats dominate the diet, this conversion process is impaired. The microbiome becomes dysbiotic, and the body loses access to one of its most powerful endogenous defense mechanisms. And so the pattern repeats. Blueberries, robbed of their allies in the gut and overwhelmed by the toxic burden of processed meat, cannot function as intended. What makes this particularly insidious is that many seniors believe they're making smart choices. After all, processed meats are marketed as protein-rich and convenient. Combine them with blueberries, nature's candy, and you've created a meal that appears balanced. But at the molecular level, this combination fosters the exact opposite of what we want as we age. It accelerates inflammation, impairs nutrient absorption, and redirects cellular energy from repair to survival. In the context of longevity, this is not just about the loss of potential. It's about cumulative biological debt. Every time this meal is consumed, the body is placed under metabolic duress. Sirtuins are not activated, NPK is not stimulated, NAD+ stores are not preserved. Instead, the body copes with nitrosamines, combats lipid peroxidation, and manages inflammation. Over weeks, months, and years, this builds up. It results in stiff arteries, slower cognitive function, increased visceral fat, and declining metabolic flexibility. Contrast that with a better scenario: blueberries paired with nuts, seeds, leafy greens, or fermented plant foods. In this environment, blueberries shine. Their polyphenols are absorbed and metabolized efficiently. The body has a calm, stable glycemic backdrop. The gut microbiome is primed to transform these polyphenols into bioactive metabolites that protect and repair. In this setting, blueberries can do what they were biologically designed to do: activate the body's inborn longevity program. We need to think about food not just in terms of nutrients or macros, but in terms of molecular synergy. The older we get, the more sensitive our systems become to inflammatory triggers, oxidative insults, and nutrient disruption. That means the margin for error gets smaller and the cost of a poor combination gets higher. So if you're over 60 and you're serious about staying sharp, strong, and independent well into your later years, make this adjustment. Separate your blueberries from your bacon. Don't let something as powerful as this fruit be reduced to a molecular mop for process damage. Aging is a system, and that system can be influenced positively or negatively by the smallest molecular events. Give your cells what they need. Let blueberries function in peace. Don't let processed meats steal their power. Because at the cellular level, it's not just what you eat. It's what you combine that changes your future. In the world of longevity and metabolic health, we often ask the wrong question: is this food healthy? It's a binary way of thinking inherited from outdated nutritional science. The real question, especially as we age, is far more nuanced. Under what circumstances does this food promote or impair cellular health? Because the truth is, no food exists in a vacuum. Every bite we take interacts with a biochemical environment that is shaped by what we ate before, what we eat alongside it, and the current state of our cells. This is especially true for blueberries, which have long been celebrated as a longevity superfood. They're rich in polyphenols, antioxidants, and natural compounds that signal the activation of protective pathways, most notably the sirtuins and AMPK, the same pathways linked to extended lifespan in nearly every organism studied. But what many people don't understand is that blueberries can only exert these benefits in the right context. And when the context is wrong, when blueberries are paired with the wrong foods, their benefits are not just diminished, they may be completely counteracted. Let's take a step back. Aging is not just the passage of time. It's a programmed biological process driven by the gradual accumulation of damage, mitochondrial dysfunction, epigenetic drift, telomere shortening, stem cell exhaustion, chronic inflammation. Every day, our body must choose between repair and survival, between growth and defense, between degeneration and regeneration. And what we eat and how we eat it sends the signals that tip this balance. Blueberries are powerful because they act as hormetic stressors. These compounds challenge the body just enough to activate its repair systems. This is the same principle behind intermittent fasting, exercise, and cold exposure. The anthocyanins in blueberries can stimulate NRF2, a master regulator of antioxidant response, and upregulate SIRT1, which helps maintain genomic stability and mitochondrial health. These aren't vague promises. These are hardwired biological switches encoded into our DNA. But here's the catch. These switches require the right metabolic and nutritional environment to be activated. If the context is flooded with inflammation from processed meat, blocked by protein polyphenol binding from dairy, or overwhelmed by insulin spikes from refined carbohydrates, the message blueberries are trying to deliver never gets through. The signaling gets lost in the noise. Think of your body like a symphony. Blueberries are an instrument, an important one, but not the conductor. If the rest of the orchestra is out of tune, one instrument can't save the performance. And this is where most nutritional advice goes wrong. We isolate foods, study them in labs, and then recommend them based on their individual components. But in real life, we don't eat compounds, we eat meals, we create contexts, and context governs chemistry. Let's consider a common example. Blueberry yogurt. Sounds healthy, right? But if it's dairy-based, the casein in the milk binds to the polyphenols, reducing their bioavailability. The very compounds meant to trigger antioxidant responses are rendered biologically inert. The yogurt creates a context that suppresses the benefits. Now imagine blueberry muffins made with white flour and sugar. The refined carbs cause a glucose spike, increasing oxidative stress and triggering inflammation. In this context, the blueberries don't stand a chance. Their antioxidant power is consumed, trying to mop up the metabolic fire caused by the rest of the meal. Again, the context turns a healing food into a reactive one. But there's another layer here that's even more subtle. Your body's response to blueberries doesn't just depend on what they're eaten with, but also on when they're eaten and what your current metabolic state is. If your mitochondria are inflamed from days of poor eating, your microbiome depleted by antibiotics, or your NAD+ levels chronically low from aging, the polyphenols in blueberries may not be metabolized properly. They require microbial conversion into bioactive forms like urolithins, which only happens in a healthy gut. In this way, the context isn't just dietary, it's physiological. And that's why people over 60 need to be especially mindful. Your internal environment has changed. The same food that once boosted your health may now pass through you without impact, or worse, become entangled in biochemical processes that accelerate aging. This concept of context is a cornerstone of systems biology in a functional medicine. It's why personalized nutrition is the future, because two people can eat the same food and experience radically different outcomes depending on their internal landscape. And this is precisely where older adults have the most to gain or lose. In your 60s and beyond, the margin for error shrinks, insulin sensitivity declines, inflammatory markers rise, muscle mass drops, the cellular machinery is more easily thrown off course. So creating the right context becomes the most important thing you can do. Now, let's flip the scenario. Imagine blueberries paired with chia seeds and almond milk. No dairy, no sugar, no processed fat, just fiber, plant-based fats, and polyphenols. This creates a slow digesting, anti-inflammatory context. Blood sugar stays stable. The gut microbiome ferments the fiber and polyphenols, increasing the bioavailability of short-chain fatty acids and urolithins. Sirtuins are activated, mitochondria are supported, DNA damage is reduced. The context amplifies the signal. Or imagine eating blueberries after a brisk walk when your muscles are insulin sensitive and glucose hungry. The sugar in the fruit is pulled into cells and used for repair, not stored as fat. The polyphenols are metabolized more efficiently. Again, the context changes everything. This is how we need to think about food as we age, not in isolation, but as part of a system, a molecular dialogue, a conversation between compounds, enzymes, hormones, and genes. And just like in any conversation, tone and timing matter as much as the words. Blueberries have a powerful message to send, but they need a quiet, receptive environment to be heard. So ask yourself, am I giving my food the right context to work for me? Am I building meals that activate healing or ones that create conflict? Because when it comes to aging, every meal is either fighting decay or fueling it. For those serious about extending their health span, the shift is clear. Move from thinking about good and bad foods to thinking about synergy, sequencing, and biological response. Understand that blueberries, as potent as they are, can only be truly effective when the stage is set for them to succeed. In the end, aging is not a solo performance. It's an ensemble. And the key to longevity isn't just choosing the right instruments, it's conducting the right symphony. As we age, one of the most profound and yet often overlooked changes in our physiology is the gradual decline in nutrient absorption. After the age of 60, our intestines don't absorb vitamins, minerals, and bioactive compounds with the same efficiency as they once did. This means that the same food consumed at a younger age may deliver far less benefit in later decades. In the case of blueberries and really any nutrient-rich food, this shift in gut and metabolic processing is game-changing. It's not hyperbole to say that after 60, nutritional inefficiency becomes a critical stressor on cellular health. To appreciate why this matters, we need to dive into the multiple layers of absorption, the anatomy and chemistry of the gut lining, the complexity of the microbiome, and the cellular transporters that usher nutrients into your bloodstream and into your cells. With age, each of these systems becomes less robust. The villi in your small intestine, the finger-like projections that increase surface area for absorption, become flattened. Enzymatic activity in the gut decreases, and the tight junctions between cells loosen, causing a leaky gut environment. All of these factors contribute to suboptimal absorption of nutrients, even when the diet appears healthy. Let's connect this to blueberries. These fruits are loaded with anthocyanins and other polyphenols, compounds that confer protection against oxidative stress, promote mitochondrial health, and stimulate longevity pathways like SIRT1, MPK, and N. But their value is contingent on absorption, transformation, and cellular delivery. If only a fraction of these compounds enters your bloodstream, we lose the hormetic signaling we rely on for cellular repair. We lose protection at the DNA, mitochondrial, and tissue level. We lose aging resilience. Another key factor is the microbiome, the living ecosystem in your gut, responsible for metabolizing and bioconverting many plant-based nutrients into bioactive forms. Certain strains of bacteria transform blueberry polyphenols into compounds like urolithins, which have been shown to rejuvenate mitochondria, reduce inflammation, and maintain muscle function. But as we age, microbial diversity declines. Western diets, antibiotics, stress, and even altered digestion patterns contribute to a depleted microbiome. Without these essential microbial partners, blueberries risk being passed through the system as relatively inert compounds rather than becoming potent mitochondrial medicine. In parallel, cells themselves become less responsive as we age. Transporters that move polyphenols across the intestinal lining lose efficiency. Receptors and downstream signaling pathways are downregulated, further diminishing the impact of absorbed compounds. What was once a robust interaction between food and cell becomes muted and inefficient. All of this gleaned, what does it mean for a person over 60 eating blueberries? First, it highlights why context matters more than ever. A combination that would have been benign at 40 or even 50 can become detrimental if it sabotages absorption in a 60-year-old body. That's why pairing blueberries with dairy, refined carbs, or processed meats is a double-edged mistake. Not only are the benefits diminished by antagonistic interactions, but those same interactions reduce already limited absorption capacity. Second, it underscores a strategy: optimize your internal environment to maximize nutrient extraction. That means pairing blueberries with foods that support digestion and enhance bioavailability. For example, consuming blueberries with a small amount of healthy fat, like olive oil or crushed nuts, can enhance polyphenol absorption because some of these compounds are fat-soluble and rely on lipid co-transport to enter the lymphatic system. Similarly, pairing with high-fiber foods like chia seeds or flax meal helps stabilize blood sugar and promote the ideal microbial fermentation of polyphenols into their most effective metabolites. Third, it's about timing and repetition. Because older guts absorb fewer nutrients per meal, volume matters up to a point, but frequency and timing matter more. Eating smaller, more nutrient-dense meals multiple times a day can maintain steady absorption rates, avoiding the one-time spike in waste of a large volume meal. And since polyphenol absorption has a post-meal window, often peaking around 1-2 hours later, it may help to include blueberries as a targeted snack rather than conflating them into large meals heavy with other macronutrients. Health span research shows that older adults who preserve muscle mass, cognition, and metabolic flexibility are often those who prioritize nutrient density and absorption precision over sheer calorie intake. For them, eating is programming. It's not filling, it's messaging. Every bite delivers instructions to genes, cells, and organ systems, or fails to if it never gets absorbed effectively. Let's also consider the role of digestive support. As we age, stomach acid decreases, and that affects the breakdown of polyphenols and other compounds early in digestion. Adding digestive bitters before meals or optimizing with herbs like ginger, turmeric, or artichoke leaf can invigorate bile flow and pancreatic enzyme release, aiding breakdown and promoting absorption. Probiotic and prebiotic fibers also maintain microbial populations that transform polyphenols into their active forms. It's not just what we eat, it's what we feed internally to make nutrients available. And then there's hydration and circulation. Blood flow to the gut walls supports nutrient transfer into the bloodstream. With age, circulation can decline. Mild exercise, walking after meals, light resistance training, or even just standing postprandially can support perfusion and nutrient delivery. It's small, but in the context of hundreds of meals over years, these details compound. Finally, remember that aging bodies are risk-sensitive systems. Each inefficiency, each macro or micro misstep adds stress. Over time, even small levels of chronic nutrient deficiency accelerate mitochondrial decay, promote inflammation, impair cognitive function, and increase frailty. On the other hand, when absorption is optimized, those same compounds like blueberry anthocyanins can repair, recalibrate, and rejuvenate at a cellular level. In conclusion, seniors don't just need the right foods, they need the right circumstances to absorb them. Every meal is a training ground for cellular health. Every bite is either fortifying or failing. So if you're over 60, don't just eat blueberries, eat them with intention. Optimize digestion, support your microbiome, stabilize glucose, and enhance bioavailability. Because in this stage of life, nutrient absorption isn't a given, it's a precious, fragile gateway to resilience. And that gateway can and must be strengthened. Aging isn't just about wrinkles or gray hair, it's fundamentally about energy. And energy at the cellular level is produced by your mitochondria. These microscopic power plants fuel every organ system in your body, your brain, your heart, your muscle. When mitochondria falter, aging accelerates. When they thrive, aging slows. And that's where strategic eating enters the equation. Most people think food is simply about fuel, calories in, calories out. But if you want to extend your health span, not just lifespan, that view is dangerously simplistic. Food is information. It's a molecular language that communicates with your genes. The right combinations can activate repair pathways, enhance mitochondrial efficiency, and suppress the hallmarks of aging. But the wrong combinations, often disguised as healthy choices, can generate oxidative stress, impair mitochondrial dynamics, and trigger chronic inflammation. This is where blueberries become interesting. These small, dark fruits are rich in anthocyanins and flavonoids, compounds that don't just neutralize free radicals, they instruct your cells to adapt. This is called hormesis, a process where a mild stressor, like blueberry polyphenols, stimulates the body's internal defense systems. When the context is right, this hormetic signaling improves mitochondrial function, boosts DNA repair, and activates genes like SIRT1 and PGC1A, which are intimately tied to longevity. But here's the crucial part. These benefits only emerge when blueberries are consumed in a way that supports, not sabotages, your internal biochemistry. When you consume blueberries with refined sugars, trans fats, or processed meats, the signal is drowned out by noise. The mitochondria are overwhelmed by inflammation and oxidative damage, and instead of entering a state of repair and rejuvenation, they go into crisis mode. Instead of turning on anti-aging programs, the cell diverts resources to damage control. Strategic eating means recognizing this dynamic and making deliberate choices to preserve mitochondrial integrity. For people over 60, this is especially important. Mitochondrial number and function decline with age. The energy demands of cells remain high, but the ability to meet those demands falters. This leads to fatigue, muscle loss, cognitive decline, and vulnerability to disease. It's no longer optional to eat wisely. Every bite becomes either a shield or a weapon. Strategic eating starts with removing the molecular disruptors. Eliminate foods that inflame the system. Trans fats, processed meats, sugar-sweetened beverages, refined flours. These foods increase levels of ROS reactive oxygen species that damage mitochondrial membranes and DNA. They also decrease the expression of antioxidant enzymes and impair mitochondrial biogenesis, the creation of new mitochondria. Once you've cleared the path, then you can layer in compounds that stimulate renewal. Blueberries are a perfect example, but so are leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, extra virgin olive oil, wild salmon, turmeric, and fermented foods. These aren't just nutrients, they're molecular activators. They turn on genes that extend cellular lifespan, enhance autophagy, cellular cleanup, and improve mitochondrial dynamics, how mitochondria fuse, divide, and adapt to stress. Let's go deeper into how this works. When you eat a bowl of wild blueberries paired with chia seeds and almond butter rather than with sugar or milk, you're not just avoiding harmful combinations. You're actively promoting AMPK activation, which enhances fat metabolism, stabilizes blood sugar, and increases NAD+ levels, fuel for sirtuins. At the same time, blueberry anthocyanins support mitochondrial enzymes and improve the electron transport chain's efficiency, reducing ROS production. This means less cellular damage, less chronic inflammation, more ATP for critical repair functions, and in practical terms, this translates to better cognitive function, improved cardiovascular health, stronger muscles, and delayed onset of age-related diseases. There's also a time dimension to strategic eating. Research shows that when you eat impacts how your mitochondria respond. Blueberries consumed during a fasted state or alongside other nutrient-dense, low glycemic foods deliver a stronger hormetic signal. In contrast, when eaten alongside high-calorie, high-carb meals, the signal gets diluted. That's why eating blueberries as part of a nutrient-focused breakfast or mid-morning snack is far more effective than pairing them with pancakes or sugary cereal.